This is Judge Rupert Wilhoit's courtroom in Grayson, Kentucky. On October 6th, Nathaniel Stevens was the victim of a fender bender when a teenager backed out of a driveway and hit him. Officer Michael Bell responded, claimed he smelled alcohol, and put Stevens through a full DUI investigation. Stevens blew zero, passed every test. Under the Fourth Amendment, a warrantless arrest requires probable cause, specific facts that a crime actually occurred. Defense attorney Derek Willis says the arrest had no legal basis, and the body cam caught almost every second of it. All of it. Except for the moment Officer Bell decided nobody should see what came next.
We'll call the case of Nathaniel Stevens, 25T 1902 on for refusal hearing. Is the Commonwealth ready?
Yes, Your Honor.
Is the defendant ready?
Yes, sir.
Call your first witness.
Commonwealth calls Officer Michael Bell.
Could you raise your right hand, please? You swear affirm testimony you're about to give is the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Say your name for the record, please.
It's Officer Michael Bell,
How are you employed?
the Grayson, Kentucky Police Department.
Were you employed at that capacity on October 6th of last year, 2025?
Yes, sir.
And did you have the occasion to come into contact with Nathaniel Stevens?
Yes.
And was he placed under arrest for allegedly driving under the influence?
Yes.
That's what was.
Your witness.
Thank you. The original call for dispatch was for a non-injury accident, wasn't it?
Yes, sir.
And the call was that Mr. Stevens was the victim of the accident.
The call came in that there was a two-vehicle non-injury accident. While myself and Sergeant Hall were responding, we was notified that one of the vehicles had left the scene.
Okay, and did you later learn that it was a 17-year-old kid who backed out of his driveway and hit Nathan?
Yes.
And that he and Nathan exchanged information and there was no issue till his father learned about the accident later and wanted to plead. Is that accurate?
To the best,
I'm going to object unless he has first-hand knowledge of that happening. Plus, I'm going to object because we're having a refusal hearing. I'm not sure how this would.
How's this relevant to the refusal?
So it is relevant for a couple of reasons. We do have knowledge because his body cam was on the entire time except for when he covered and whispered. And second, during the entire encounter, there was no indication he was under the influence until a couple of things happened. So I'll keep it very brief, just a little bit of information.
Yeah, if you think, I think I'll let you have a little leeway there.
Thank you. You claim you smelled alcohol, correct?
I don't believe so. Let me double check before I testify to that. I did say I could smell a strong odor of alcoholic beverage, but there was no signs of alcohol from the individual.
So when you told him that you smelled alcohol, he looked at you and went, did he not?
Not that I can recall. I mean, I don't want to say yes or no.
And at that point, you got pretty close to him and said, if you make another aggressive movement toward me, I'm going to put you under arrest.
I did say that, yes.
Was it an aggressive movement to breathe so that you could actually?
Judge, I don't understand what this line of questioning is for refusal. I still haven't caught on to, I've given him a little leeway to try to get to.
I'm going to let him ask the question. Go ahead.
So, what he did end up blowing on me, but it could be taken as he was trying to spit or anything above that could be taken as an aggressive manner.
But he didn't try to spit on you. He said, basically, I've been drinking. And you call that an aggressive movement.
When the
It
act
was
was,
simply accepted.
but it could have been taken as someone attempting to spit on him.
Did you take it as him trying to spit?
At first, yes, but then he did exhale the air.
When you specifically asked him, "You take the PBT?" He said yes.
Yes.
And when he took the PBT, it was 0.000, correct?
It did not determine the presence of alcohol.
Okay.
In Kentucky, under KRS 189A.010, a DUI conviction requires proof that the defendant was under the influence at the time of driving. 0 on the breathalyzer and past field tests does not meet that standard. It contradicts it. And under KRS 431.005, a warrantless arrest is only lawful when an officer has reasonable grounds to believe a crime has been committed. Nervousness and pacing are not reasonable grounds.
There was absolutely no indication of presence of.
Yes.
Okay. And at that point, did you explain the consequences of him declining to take that test when he took the PBT?
No, sir. I was asked if he would submit to it.
Okay. So did his hesitation all along appear to be lack of explanation, lack of understanding, rather than lack of cooperation?
There was a passive. I mean, he was very questionable about it, but I mean, I explained it the same as I would do any other traffic stop.
His behavior and the fact there was nothing in the PBT is consistent with no alcohol consumption. Do you agree?
Yes.
After the PBT, he tried to call me, didn't he?
I don't know who he tried to call him.
Well, on the video, you say if you call him, he'll be a witness and he can't represent you.
I said if he comes down here, he'll be a witness.
So, presumably, he's trying to call me, right?
But at that point, he was detained. For the investigative purposes of.
Answer the question. What was your question?
He tried to call me, and you told him if he comes down here, he's a witness and can't represent you. You told him that.
Yes.
Are you trained to tell people they can't call a lawyer?
No, sir. But on it.
Under what authority do you have to tell somebody if they try to call a lawyer, you can't call him, he can't represent you?
One point of a traffic stop, you're detained. Until that, you're afforded an opportunity if we go for any kind of chemical testing.
So back with the testing, again, he said he didn't want to take a test without his lawyer present.
Mhm.
And you previously told him if his lawyer's present, he can't represent him.
For the observation testing, but he's afforded an opportunity to communicate with an attorney via phone.
Did you sit down and tell him the difference between a lawyer not being able to represent him if he shows up at the scene versus not being able to represent him if he called during the implied consent?
No, it's in the compliant consent that he's afforded 10 minutes, but not more than 15 minutes to attempt to communicate.
Everything was recorded on the body cam, wasn't it?
Yes.
And there was a point in time after he took the PBT and after he took the still sobriety test that you said, I'm going to issue some citations. I'm going to go over and talk to the other attorney. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And at that time, he was not under arrest.
He was still detained, but he was not under arrest at that time.
And you indicated he wasn't under arrest, that you were just going to give him citation.
He was going to get some citations, but I never told him if he was or was not going to be placed under arrest.
And did he ask you what's the citation for? You told him you'll find out when I get you.
As in, I'll explain it like I do every traffic stop, each charge that's on the citation.
Then afterwards, you went and spoke to the victim, or not the victim, the perpetrator actually, his father, who were standing off the side, correct?
Yes, sir.
And you told him, I'm going to hand out a citation. You can come to the police department in 2 days to get a report.
Yes.
And you didn't tell him he was under arrest.
I did not tell the other party that he was under arrest, no.
You came back and you told Mr. Stevens, if you hadn't had done the standardized still sobriety test, you would have been under arrest.
I did say that, yes.
And when you said that, he said, well, you would have been sued. Is that correct?
To the best I can recall.
And your response was, no, I had qualified immunity. I wouldn't be sued.
I don't recall that.
Okay, let's in the video. And at that point, you walked away and you spoke to Sergeant Hall.
Yes.
And you covered your body cam.
We wasn't whispering. I did remove it off my chest and communicated with Sergeant Hall.
And why would you do that?
Just speaking with the sergeant on the scene.
And at that point, you came back and told him he was under arrest.
I did consult with Sergeant Hall regarding the observations that we observed, and we come to a mutual conclusion that we believed he was going to be under the influence.
And at that point, you came back and told him he was under arrest. And you came back and told him he was under arrest. And at that point, you came back and told him he was under arrest. And you came back and told him he was under arrest. And you came back and told him he was under arrest. And you came back and told him he was under arrest. And you came back and told him he was under arrest. And you came back and told him he was under arrest. And you came back and told him he was under arrest. And you came back and told him he was under arrest. And you came back and told him he was under arrest. And you came back and told him he was under arrest. And you came back and told him he was under arrest. And you came back and told him he was under arrest. And you came back and told him he was under arrest. And you came back and told him he was under arrest. And you came back and told him he was under arrest. And you came back and told him he was under arrest. And you came back and told him he was under arrest. And you came back You came to the mutual
or a
conclusion.
conclusion that we believe he was under the influence.
What did he do that insinuated in any way he was under the influence?
Just the way he was acting nervous on scene, he was pacing, he wasn't being very cooperative with the investigation. All signs that could lead to somebody being impaired of a narcotic or some type of intoxicant.
How was he not? He did everything you asked him to after you explained what you wanted him to do. He didn't call me when he told me that I couldn't represent him if I appeared. And I left the phone with him. How was he uncooperative?
He was very confrontational, was back and forth on wanting to submit the test.
But after you told him what the test was, he did it. Except for the final test.
He didn't, yes.
When you covered the camera, were you trying to call the prosecutor, asking for legal advice?
No, sir. I was speaking with the sergeant on scene.
Okay, and at that time, you weren't in fear for your safety, it wasn't for officer safety or anything?
No, sir.
Why would you cover your camera?
It was a tactic. I just went up and spoke with Sergeant Hall. We wasn't.
Did you say a tactic?
It was a. I moved it off my chest to go up and speak with Sergeant Hall. We wasn't in contact with the other party there, so it was just myself and the sergeant.
But that was right after he said, if you would have arrested me, you would have been sued, wasn't it?
Not that I can recall.
Did that have anything to do with you covering the camera and whispering to Sergeant Hall?
No, sir.
And, Mr. Stevens also specifically, when you asked him to continue doing tests, if I do these tests and I pass, am I good? And what do you recall that question?
No, sir.
Do you recall hearing Officer Hall say, if you're not scared, you are?
I don't recall that, sir.
Okay. And after that assurance, Mr. Stevens, at that time, did the field survey. That's correct.
Yes.
He did everything he instructed.
Yes, sir.
He said, man, you're making me nervous.
He may have. I don't want to say yes or no.
Nervousness is not impairment.
No, sir.
You told him, like I just asked you, if he had not done this, he would have been going to jail.
Yes.
Would you agree that that insinuated he wasn't going to jail at that time?
No, sir. It was a scene that I had enough based off him not wanting to do field sobriety that I believe he would be under that influence.
Then after he did and told you you would have been sued, at that point you did arrest him.
Yes, sir, because I believe he was under the influence.
I will set aside the refusal.
Under 42 U.S.C. Section 1983, any person whose constitutional rights are violated by a government official can sue for civil damages. The criminal case ending in a deferred adjudication doesn't close that door. It actually strengthens it, because now there's a court record showing the DUI was indefensible from the start. Bell is also gone from Grayson PD, but the supervisor who watched it happen and said nothing is still there. Under Section 1983, supervisory liability is real. If a superior officer witnesses a constitutional violation and fails to intervene, they can be held personally responsible alongside the officer who made the arrest. The Bodycam didn't just help Stevens beat the charge, it built the foundation for everything that comes next. If you think Bell's supervisor should face the same consequences, tell us in the comments.